Olá, meu nome é Cássio, sou jornalista do Cointelegraph e atuo nesse setor de criptomoedas aí já faz um bom tempo. Também sou pai da Joana, uma menina de 5 anos que tem um sorriso maravilhoso e que tem uma alteração genética e paralisia cerebral. A gente está montando uma campanha para ajudar a Joana para fazer um tratamento para a paralisia cerebral na Rússia. Então a gente conta com o apoio de vocês e desde já queria agradecer a Exame por essa oportunidade e por esse evento maravilhoso. Valeu, pessoal, fica com os maiores nomes aí do universo de criptomoedas aí agora nesse evento. Valeu.
Olá a todos, sejam muito bem-vindos a mais um painel do maior evento sobre criptoativos do mundo. Temos agora uma entrevista com o fundador da Sonic Capital, ex-CEO da Bitcoin.com, Stephen Rust. O bate-papo vai ser feito em inglês, então a partir daqui, se você não está familiarizado com a língua, pode acompanhar nossas discussões pelas legendas. Now switching to English. Hi Stephen, first and foremost, welcome to the first edition of Crypto Week. We're thrilled to have you here.
Thank you, Nicholas, for inviting me, and great to meet everybody at Crypto Week, and an amazing event you've put together, and looking forward to having our chat.
Great. So before we begin, can you please tell us a little bit of your journey in the crypto industry and how did you get here? I know that you've worked at Bitcoin.com and now you shifted to be the founder of Sonic Capital. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, so I got into Bitcoin really early on. I was very lucky to have I founded a developer agency where we were building applications for a number of different technology companies, and we were hosting hackathons around the world. And at one point, I was introduced to Bitcoin by a developer that wanted to be paid for a specific project for one of the technology companies in Bitcoin. And this was about 2012. So I looked up Bitcoin and did some research and really sort of downloaded a Java wallet because I used to work at Sun Microsystems. And so Java was a big element of my career in the past. And so I downloaded the Bitcoin J wallet, bought some Bitcoin using PayPal at the time, on eBay, and was my first experience. And it was only then, actually, though, in about 2013, where I paid that developer on a Skype call. He was actually in Latin America, and I paid him during a Skype call. He immediately got the money, and there were no fees associated with it. And so that was, for me, an amazing experience. Whereas had I done it through a bank, he would have had to wait 5 days. We would have had high fees, and so all of a sudden it made so much sense, that freedom, that independence, that speed of where and how I could do it from sitting at a desk instead of having to walk to a branch, fill out a form, sign a piece of paper, get approval, and then he has to wait 5 days, pay $700 just to transfer X amount of dollars. So for me, I was hooked right from then. I paid all my staff in Bitcoin. I paid the software developers that worked for us that wanted to be paid in Bitcoin, I set up a company account with ANX so we could constantly buy and sell. And ANX then became OSL, which is a big trading house here in Hong Kong. And that's sort of how I got into Bitcoin, and I was very passionate about it.
What year was that?
That was about 2013, and then we organized a bit of an event where we aggregated and got people that were trading Bitcoin, that were in the blockchain space, mining Bitcoin. We created an event, and it was February 2013, and that went, it was just a full house. I mean, it was amazing, and so I was hooked from then on in. Thought it was the best thing since. And then since experienced lots of rides in Bitcoin, we had lots of ups and downs, and continued to buy and sell along the way all the time. And it was only at a conference in Hong Kong where I then met Roger Ver, who was the founder of Bitcoin.com. And we sort of hit it off and were having great conversations. And he then needed somebody at Bitcoin.com to run his corporate development and business development activity. And I said, look, I'll help out. Glad to sort of see how I can add value and get more people into Bitcoin and show them and get the appreciation for how you can rapid transaction independently and at very low cost or next to nothing. And that's when I started at Bitcoin.com and very quickly became the CEO of Bitcoin.com.
So you started Bitcoin.com with Roger Ver. That was what was your role at the project at the beginning?
So Roger's, I didn't start it with Roger. I helped Roger grow it from a sort of during the period of the dark winter after 2017 through to last year, where we needed to expand, and we expanded from a 2 million wallet base to 12 million wallets. We grew partnerships with HTC for a mobile phone to enable payments. We did a partnership, a strategic investment in a company like Go Crypto, which does payments across all of Europe, and launched an exchange. We did partnerships around gaming technologies, and we were just constantly looking to offer more non-custodial type services for our users and highlight the ability of what you can do with Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash in particular, because Bitcoin Cash had very low fees and super quick transaction times that were a great value proposition to minimizing friction at the merchants, yet at the same time providing an awesome customer experience.
I see. So just before this panel, we were speaking about the difference between Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin. Could you please elaborate a bit on that so our audience could have a base common layer?
So I mean, in summary, in simple terms, the way I view it is Bitcoin is like the gold 2.0. If you want to store your value, hodl the coins, and hope that it rises because of the limitations that it has, then Bitcoin is the right currency for you. It has long confirmation times. It is stable, and there's a huge demand for Bitcoin, mainly because it has a brand that people are very familiar with as well. Then you have Bitcoin Cash, which is built on the same principles that is running Bitcoin Core. However, it has slightly bigger block sizes, which means you can add more transactions in a specific block, which means, and with some of the additional technologies that were created for Bitcoin Cash, you can do very quick transactions. And the whole objective is to keep the transaction cost very, very low, so next to free. So that way you can do hundreds of microtransactions and at the same time pay much less than you would for one transaction on another blockchain, for example. The other day I was just on Ethereum. And I was doing a transaction trading on Ethereum, And the gas fees on Ethereum are very high at the moment because the
Very high.
demand there is very high as well, right? And so imagine if you're a game developer or you've got an NFT and you've created a little artifact that you want to sell for a couple of dollars. You don't want to be paying $50 for selling a $5 item. So how do you provide users with that ability to immediately trade at a low cost, yet obtain the value for a product that is not subsumed in the gas fees or transaction fees?
Yeah. So moving back to your history in this market, you recently founded Sonic Capital. Could you tell us a little bit more about that shift?
So COVID happened in about early last year, so January to March. In March, the markets sort of really realized that they tanked. The financial investors sort of realized that this is going to have a much broader implication than people had anticipated at the earlier stages. What that brought about was two things. One is we need to change the way the planet is being governed. Because at the moment, if we let the governance continue to run on this rate, we will ruin our lives on the planet and we will all be walking around in hazmat suits. And so I believe that blockchain has the ability to provide a governance structure that will allow for rewarding participants to also make sure we have sustainability on the planet we're living on. And so I then decided to set up Sonic Capital and figure out what mechanisms and how to use blockchain to the betterment of society, yet still leveraging the financial instruments that we have in the blockchain across decentralized finance, payments, as well as tokenization of everything. And so to me, that is the exciting part. And so how do we broaden the applications of the blockchain? And that's what we're doing at Sonic Capital.
Great. Reading your investment thesis, I saw that you rely a lot on ESG for the growth in the future. How ESG and blockchain communicate, in your opinion?
So I mean, ESG. I mean, it's in a way I view it very simply. You have the ability to provide the governance on the blockchain in smart contracts. You have the ability to put on the blockchain algorithms that confirm consensus associated with that governance. And lastly, you have the ability to tokenize the activity. And so that way I can token, which puts an immediate value to certain products or services that are environmentally, socially, governance related. I then can have an algorithm that calculates and verifies all of the activities associated with that token. And then I can equally make sure in a decentralized basis on a blockchain that there are a number of participants that are holding accountable all the players and activities that are taking place around that token related to that service on the blockchain.
I see. And you are relying on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain to do such investments, or you are agnostic to which blockchain you will use?
We're going to be agnostic, so we're looking at multiple different protocols. What's the best one? One of the projects that we've recently been involved in is a company called Regen.network. They're on the Cosmos blockchain, and they're tokenizing the farmland and the bio and carbon sequestration on the on that farmland in Australia and selling the tokens in the US. You then have another project that we're looking at, nodal.io or .co. Nodal basically is on the Polkadot blockchain, and they're doing a lot of work around tracing, data sharing, and rewarding the users for sharing their data. And so you earn around that. And then obviously we're doing a lot of projects around NFT. We're looking at NFT on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain, but also looking at a whole set of other blockchains, as well as tokenization on the blockchain. I'm still involved in the Simple Ledger Protocol Foundation, which is a part of Bitcoin Cash, and leveraging the benefits of Bitcoin Cash. And there will be some very interesting announcements coming out around adoption of services on top of the Bitcoin Cash network as it relates to payments, transfers, etc., and NFT as well, by the way.
Great. So now that we are specifically on the crypto assets topic and speaking about Bitcoin, how do you believe it can change how things work?
Yeah, no, I think it can change a lot of things, right? I mean, it has already changed for, I was at a dinner last night and people were asking around, how many people are involved in Bitcoin. And if you look at the Coinbase IPO, I think they have some 50 to 100, million people using their services. You then look at blockchain.com, they have another 50 million people using their wallet. You have bitcoin.com that has maybe 15 people using their wallet. So let's say worldwide, there are maybe 100 to 150 million people that have touched blockchain. That's still a tiny portion of the global population of 7 billion. And so we still have a lot of work to do in front of us to get much broader adoption. But those participants that engaged in the blockchain early on have been very successful in earning and making a good living, and generating wealth in an economy where it's very difficult to get onto the ladder anyway in any other industry unless you're willing to work through 20, 30, 40 years of a career to get somewhere. And so I think that the blockchain and cryptocurrencies is going to enable and provide a lot of hope to the next generations. At the same time, create a lot of wealth because of the innovation and efficiencies that it's driving. It's going to create a whole new set of jobs that we don't have today. You have new skill sets that are needed that we haven't had in the past, and we don't know what skill sets and jobs they will create tomorrow based on the capabilities that we have today. And so that's going to create new wealth, new opportunities for a new generation that's coming into the work field or the work life.
Agreed.
And to me, that's the exciting part. People are hopeful, there's opportunity, and there's wealth to be made in this.
Great. Now back to your experience at Bitcoin.com. You developed a partnership with HTC to include a crypto wallet on a mobile device. Do you see crypto payments as a trend in the next decade? If so, how do you believe this trend will unroll in the next years to come?
Yeah, I mean, how did that come about, right? We all have mobile phones, and the whole world everybody has a mobile phone pretty much, right? So that gives you a 7 billion population with mobile phones, of which maybe 2 billion have smartphones. And so one of the phones that was developed is by HTC, the Exodus phone. And what Exodus does, it has a trusted, the TEE, which is a trusted, I can't remember, environment, right? So basically it's a section inside the hardware of the phone that does not connect to the communication part of the phone. And so you can thereby use the phone as a hardware wallet, if you will. And what we did with HTC was ensure that the Bitcoin.com wallet was deeply integrated into that hardware element. So you could immediately back up and store your Bitcoin Cash, your SLP tokens, and your Bitcoin into that hardware element on the phone. And the idea behind that is if everybody has a phone, everybody has the ability to have a wallet on the phone and has ability to have crypto on their phone, which means they should, in theory, be able to, as easily with your Apple Pay or your Visa card or credit card, be able to go tap and go at any merchant around the world. And in fact, if you go to countries like Slovenia, where we partnered with Go Crypto, you can actually spend in more than, I think it was, nearly up to 3,000 different stores. You can spend your Bitcoin Cash and your Bitcoin with Go Crypto in all of those stores. So they built out a whole Bitcoin city where you can actually go to supermarkets, you can go to retail outlets around Slovenia and Ljubljana, the capital there, and pay in crypto. And in fact, if you go to maps.bitcoin.com, you can find all these merchants around the world with the global network that we built out and our ambassador support across the Bitcoin Cash community that then would aggregate the information associated with any merchant so you could use your Bitcoin Cash to pay at that specific merchant.
Great. And do you believe that the payments will happen in the settlement layer, like the base layer from the blockchain, or Visa and other payment institutions such as PayPal, MasterCard will connect to these protocols and enable faster payments?
I think there's room for multiple industries. I mean, if you look at the payment ecosystem at the moment, there are a lot of players doing payment type services. And payment is a huge industry. I don't know off the top of my head anymore how big that is. But either way, you've got a lot of participants across the value chain in the payment sector. And I think there's, number one, room for innovation across that value chain. And I do think that there will be a number of players in that area as well. So I think you will have, Visa, Square, and the others, and will have a role. But I do think you will have a layer of participants that will provide a fully non-custodial service using blockchain as the settlement layer or the payment rails, and then using wallets as the applications, as well as the point of sale services at a merchant. And it's all going to come down to fees. At the moment, you're paying with a credit card and that value chain a pretty high fee. If the blockchain can do it at a much lower cost basis, so that you as a merchant aren't paying 3, 5, 7% in transaction fees, all of a sudden you're going to be able to say, oh wow, if I can do this at 2% or 0.5%, I'm going to choose that alternative. And so it's super important for a blockchain proposition to be at a much lower cost basis with no friction and have the same sort of integrations that I have from an accounting standpoint, from a reporting standpoint, so that I can get an overview in terms of my operations across my network and my chains.
I see. So do you believe crypto and blockchain has the same adoption curve as other types of new technologies?
If you look at the adoption curve, where are we now? We're about 12 years in from 2008, 2009. Blockchain was came out. It was like really listed and got popular. Let's say 2013, 2014, 15, 17 hit a spike. We're sort of maybe 10 to 12 years in. I don't know. I mean, what other technologies? I think it has a greater power and influence in an economy than even the internet has had. And largely because it is around the ability for around money, right? So all of a sudden, the internet was a layer where we could do transaction and share information, and we still have that layer, by the way. Don't forget that blockchain and cryptocurrencies is built on top of the internet. So I think that there is a significant opportunity, and we're just at the beginning. We haven't even touched the surface of it from a financial services, from an e-commerce standpoint, from a payment standpoint, from an artifact, from overall all sorts of supply chain, all these different industries that are going to be using the blockchain and changing the model. Because if you remember, we started off, the business models always evolved, right? So it started off where consumer pays fiat to use their service. You had to pay your telecom provider to use their phone bill, right? To use the mobile phones. You had to do an international call. Then next, WhatsApp comes. We have this thing called voice over IP. All of a sudden, you don't need to pay. You can actually do a phone call for free across the globe. Like, look at us now. I'm doing a Zoom call, and there's no international fees for this. There's no pay per minute. We're just doing a call on a VoIP network, and we have got video, we got all these different capabilities. And that was Model 2, and that allows for the rise of WhatsApp, Viber, KakaoTalk, Facebook Messenger, Skype, all of these other companies that emerged out of that. Now you look at the model is now shifting where all of a sudden it's no longer free, the service. We're actually paying, and you actually pay with data. So that's sort of what we've learned with the whole Facebook fiasco and Google, and we're realizing that we're paying, our data is paying for the free service, which is okay. We get a trade for that, right? I trade my data in return for having my Facebook network, my messenger profiles, being able to use WhatsApp and have my friends connected with me. So that's okay. But the model now in a blockchain world and a crypto world is, I'm going to pay you, the user, in return for your data. Why do I do that, right? Because in a way, I look at the user gives me data. The data allows me to improve my service, which gets me more users, which gets me more data, which allows me to improve my service, which again gets me more users. So that virtuous cycle is so important. And the way to get more data now, and rather than spend $100 acquiring a customer on marketing, why don't I give the customers directly $20 and use that $20 to acquire users? That gives me the data so that I can optimize the user experience to then pay them more if they use it more and they like that service. And so then I have that virtuous cycle that, again, changes the whole dynamics in the business model where the user is rewarded for the data they share.
Great. So that answers my next question. That is, how does crypto assets and other emerging tech integrates for building a better future? Do you want to add something to that answer, or it is answered? It has been answered already.
I mean, that's one answer, right? And I think the other answer is what cryptocurrencies have done, and the ability to tokenize a service and a model is to allow the greater population to participate in what I call mass venture capitalism. And so instead of having 3 or 4 VCs decide in a room how to invest in companies and what to do, and keep all of their investments in a balance sheet and just show at the end, out of 100 investments, I made 3 and I outperformed overall, right? And all of a sudden now, all of those investments are now publicly made available, where people can buy in on a token and participate in new ventures that they want to and that they believe in or that serve a purpose. And that, I think, is a great feature where everybody can participate in early stage investors. However, it is super important that everybody does their research around their investments and takes responsibility into their hands. So you take your responsibility in your hands, you do your own research, you make your assessments, you make your strategy, and you then make a decision whether that should be an investment or I shouldn't do that investment. That responsibility now is within our control. We are mature enough as a population to make those decisions. And that is important as well, equally as important.
Use your grown-up pants, right?
That's it. Big boy pants, I think, as Ivan on Tech calls it, right?
Exactly. Now, my last couple of questions. In your opinion, why did crypto assets prices exploded last couple of years? Is that a reversible trend, or we can see some drawbacks in the near future? Because, I mean, we're talking about 3, 4, sometimes 10 times the price, right? So what's your take on that?
I mean, I'm a believer, right? I mean, I'm in this for the long run, and I am biased. I see Bitcoin at 150,000 at the end of the year, Ethereum maybe at 10,000 at the end of the year. But again, that's my personal prediction, and that's sort of where that's where I'm putting a lot of my resources and activities. Not to mention some of the other blockchains that are all doing activity, right? And Bitcoin Cash and there are Terra. Really excited about some of the innovation happening over there. So there's a lot of what Thorchain is doing. There's so much innovation going on, and it's moving at such a fast pace that is really getting a lot of traction at a protocol layer, so infrastructure layer. And we haven't yet seen these beautiful apps that are going to be built on top of all of these different protocols. So I think we're really early on, which means that there's going to be a lot of demand in different cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin has become extremely popular, even with institutional investors. And the main reason why it's become so popular, and we've seen this rapid growth, is partially because, number one, the governments haven't done any favors by printing trillions and trillions of dollars. The US government, the European government, the Chinese government, everybody has been printing trillions of dollars to subsidize their economies. And number one. So at the same time, that brings about worries and concerns about inflation. And so that means that by printing an additional 20 to 40% of the currency, your original dollar has devalued by 20% or 40%, depending on which economy you're in. And so I then flip that and I look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin has only got 21 million coins. So I know there is a limited supply. And I know that that supply is controlled by an algorithm, and it's governed by the blockchain and a consensus model and nodes that has tens and thousands of nodes around the world that is, governing or that whole algorithm of 21 million Bitcoins and how many get released into the market according to an algorithm. And so from that perspective, a lot of people view that is a great way to store value and hold that value. And that's why I think it is constantly grown has appreciated in value. And the main reason is, more and more people are just coming to that realization and want to participate and store some of their wealth in that alternative asset.
Great. I told you that this was going to be my last question, but I have one more, if you allow me.
Yep.
That is, what would you say to a no-coiner?
Start now. It's not too late. but make sure, I just say most people I say is, look, it's super exciting. It is real. We're going to go through battles, so it's not going to be plain sailing. Bitcoin has gone through a lot of rough roads on the way to get to where it is today. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, number one. And number two, it is going to go through a lot of different waves going forward. The government's not going to like us. The financial institutions don't like Bitcoin at the moment. They're beginning to change their mind on that. But, there's going to be regulatory challenges. There's going to be other sort of technical hurdles that we have to overcome. But in the long run, this is where the future is. And if you want to put some money aside, then I would put some money in a currency that stores value. And, if you could put money in gold, would you put money in gold? But gold you can't carry around with you. My Bitcoin, I can have in my phone, and I can have it with me all the time. And so can I do that with any other cryptocurrency in all your different wallets. So it's never too late. Find a way to buy some Bitcoin, just play around with it. Start small, learn, start really small. Don't put big assets aside. Just get into it and then experience it. And either you'll love it and you'll go down the rabbit hole, or you just don't get it and don't have the patience or don't want to do it. That's okay too. Everybody has the right to choose. And I think we should make sure that we allow our people to choose and not have institutions that want to nanny us through every step of our lives. And I think we're grown up enough to be able to make sure that we choose and retain that right to choose.
Great advice. Do you have any final considerations you would like to make? Unfortunately, our time is running low.
Yeah, no, I think I said most of it. Really, I'm super excited about the innovation that's happening in crypto. And I think it's across multiple blockchains. I think there are a number of different services that are evolving. Payments, there's so much going on that I don't know where to start, but you've got DeFi, which is decentralized finance, which is taking a lot of what you see on Wall Street into the blockchain and providing that and making those functionalities and capabilities available to everybody. Number one, so that's super interesting. The NFT market, non-fungible token, which is taking the art world, the creative community, and allowing them to directly participate with the end users and their fan base and collect royalties off that, is another super interesting innovation that's coming to a wallet on a mobile phone near you right now.
Great. And all those topics you can find here on Crypto Week, so don't forget to check it out. Okay, so perfect. Stefan, thanks for your participation. It was a pleasure speaking to you. I'm sure we'll have more opportunities to connect. And now I will switch back to Portuguese to make my final considerations, okay?
Thank you very much, Nicholas, and thank you everybody for listening to this for 40 minutes. I hope we provided some value and some insights to the audience, and have a great week at Crypto Week, an amazing program, some great speakers, and all the best. Thank you very much again.
Bom, pessoal, então temos aí a entrevista com o Stefan Rust. Espero que vocês tenham gostado. Como vocês puderam ver, é um cara com muito conhecimento. Foi super proveitoso o papo e queria convidar todos vocês a participarem também dos próximos painéis que a gente vai ter aqui ao longo do dia, que com certeza vai ter uma qualidade excelente de conteúdo, tá legal? Então um abraço e nos vemos lá.